everyone. Welcome to Contango ORE's live investment summit today, hosted by Six. I'm pleased to introduce their president and CEO, Rick Van Nieuwenhuyse. Rick's going to be going through the latest news and presentation that Contango has, and after we're going to be accepting questions live. So feel free to submit any questions that you might have to the Q&A chat found on the right-hand side of your screen at any time today. Also, if you'd like to get in touch with the Contango ORE team, feel free to fill out the survey that's linked in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen again. And as always, the summit is being recorded and is going to be available on Six.com in the coming days. So if you need a refresher, look out for that. Without further ado, Rick, I'd like to hand things over to you so you can get us started.
Thank you, Cam, and good morning, everyone. I'll look forward to giving you an update on Contango ORE's activities. We've been pretty busy this first quarter here of the year. Of course, I'll be making forward-looking statements, so just be aware of the cautionary language. Not really much of an update on our capital structure. Pretty much as it has been, 7.2 million shares outstanding and traded on the NYSE American under the symbol CTGO. We are spending our cash, and I'll be talking about our debt financing that we are in the process of completing, and an equity raise that we'll likely be doing here in the near term. Of course, our major flagship project is the Manh Choh project, joint venture with Kinross at 70% and on lands owned by the Tetlin Alaska Native Tribe. I will also be giving you an update on our Lucky Shot project, a lot of activity going on there as well. And of course, we have our early stage exploration projects that I'll just mention briefly. Manh Choh, again, located with the gold star there next to the Canadian border, right along the Alaska Highway. A nice high quality resource on land owned by the tribe. They own a very large part of Alaska's private land, surface and subsurface. And of course, we entered into a joint venture with Kinross. From our side, we saw the benefits of using the milling facilities at Fort Knox, just located where the Red Star here is there, just outside of Fairbanks here, where I'm located. And of course, that meant we didn't have to build a tailings facility or a mill, permit all those things, capitalize all those things, and it allowed us to sort of short circuit, if you will, the path to getting to production. And we're basically about a year away from production, so very exciting time for Contango and for Contango shareholders. The deposit is really kind of ideally located from a mining standpoint. If you're familiar with the mining business, the biggest issue you usually face in mining is water. Usually you either don't have enough. If you're working in the Atacama Desert of Chile, you don't have enough water, or if you're working in Alaska or anywhere in the northern latitudes, you generally have too much water. Our project is located on top of a hill, so there's a minimal amount of water that we have to deal with. Basically, the only water to deal with is what falls on your head, either as rain in the summer or snow is in the wintertime. We've now advanced the project through feasibility. We have our federal permits, and the state permits are expected in the next month or so here. So everything has kind of been moving along according to plan. And of course, Kinross is the manager and operator of the joint venture. They own 70%. So when I say we, I really mean that, this is Kinross doing all the heavy lifting here. And we are basically a minority partner, but we're going to get a significant amount of gold production by being a minority partner. So I'll outline that for you as well. We've got a pretty significant program going on this year, and I'm very pleased to announce that we've been entered into agreements with ING, which is a Dutch bank, and Macquarie, which is an Australian bank. These are two of the tier one banks that provide debt financing to the mining industry. Very pleased to have both those banks as supporting the project. We're arranging a $70 million debt facility with the two, and we'll just be finalizing final documents here over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks. So stay tuned for that announcement when that closes. but we're well on the way. Technical due diligence is nearing completion, and so we're very pleased that this is a major milestone for the company. Having two leading banks go through their due diligence, visit the site, meet with Kinross, meet with our management team, and make a decision to support the project to the tune of $70 million is it's a major milestone. So I'm really pleased to be able to announce this. Of course, the economics, their lending is really based on the economics of the project, and this is a feasibility study results from Kinross done earlier last year. The project would produce on a 100% basis 225,000 ounces of gold equivalent. That is mostly gold. A little bit of silver as it comes along as a byproduct credit. Our 30% share would be 67,500 ounces on average per year over the mine life. We're delivering an 8 gram per ton average grade to the Fort Knox mill. That's very high grade ore for an open pit mine. Capital cost coming in at 182, which included a $14 million contingency, and we haven't seen that number really grow. Everybody's of course everybody's aware that we have significant inflation going on. Fortunately, I think our project now is about 90% completed and committed with the major contracts being signed, which I'll mention a little bit later. But we're seeing our overall capital costs kind of coming in there right around where we thought they would be when we released this last year. Nonetheless, we're cautious, so we continue to have an additional $16 million as a potential inflationary cover, which our share is $4.8 million. So that's all part of the mix that the banks have made their economic assumptions on and have made their decision to make their investment on. All-in sustaining cost, again, we're guiding towards $1,100. We do expect to have our feasibility study finalized here now that we have the tolling arrangement in place with Kinross and the truck haul arrangement in place. All the important contracts now are finalized, and so we can complete our feasibility, which I plan to have out here in the next couple of weeks. So, but not really seeing any significant changes from what Kinross released, last year, and what we've been sort of guiding to as we've advanced the project over the course of the last year. Again, what makes this all possible is the fact that we're close to the highway, and we're about 18 miles from the Alaska Highway. You can see the Manh Choh project there in the hills behind the bushes, and it's about 240-mile drive up to the Fort Knox mill. Fort Knox, of course, been operating for 25 years, so it's a large mill, big gyratory crusher, SAG mill, and two ball mill trains. One will be dedicated to processing the Manh Choh ore on a quarterly basis. So we call this batch processing on a quarterly basis. We'll build up roughly 240,000 ton stockpile at Fort Knox, and then once a quarter for roughly a month, 3-4 weeks, we'll be processing ores from Manh Choh through this circuit. The rest of the time, the mill would process the regular ore from Fort Knox, the mill ore from Fort Knox. So that plan is in place, and we'll hope to start hauling ore later this year to the Fort Knox facility for growing the stockpile. I mentioned earlier that we received our Wetlands 404 permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I believe that was in August. We started building the road right away in the lowlands and clearing the road up in the uplands or in the highlands. We continued that work effort through the winter, and the road continues to be built during the winter months. We've actually had a pretty mild winter here in interior Alaska. What really slows you down in building road in the wintertime is super cold weather. When it's minus 40 degrees, the equipment and the people don't really like to work too well. well. So we hadn't had much of that weather this year, and we've not had a huge amount of snowfall either. So that's allowed us to make good progress on the road through the winter months, which is actually keeping us slightly ahead of schedule. So all good news on the construction front. And I think, as I've mentioned before, we another part of the early works program that had been going on was the construction of a camp. This will be a 200-person camp. It's located just on the immediate outskirts of the town of Tok, which is the nearest town, large community to the project. And this facility is now completed and is operational. This was an old hotel that was refurbished, and that was completed late last year, and is, as I said, now operational. One note here on an ESG front: this camp will be turned over to the Tetlin tribe at the end of the mine life, and converted into an elders facility. So I think a very good outcome there from sort of a giving back standpoint from the projects, from the joint venture standpoint of giving this facility, handing it over to the Tetlin tribe at the end of the mine life, and so that way elders don't have to go all the way to Fairbanks or Anchorage to receive health care. Other works that are going on is what we call the mill modifications. Because our ore is 10 to 15 times the grade of Fort Knox, we need more tankage for things like cyanide and carbon, cyanide destruct circuit, as well as lime addition. So because the ore is so much higher grade, you just need more chemicals, more additives to the ore, and so that tankage expansion is underway, and is planned to get finished sometime later this summer. At site, the Manh Choh site itself is really a pretty simple mining operation. 2 open pits, non-acid generating waste rock piles immediately adjacent to the pits, and then some temporary storage stockpiles for potential acid generating waste rock, which will be placed in the bottom of the pits at the end of the mine life, and then submerged in water. The pits will be allowed to refill with water to their natural water table, which will keep the sulfides from oxidizing and generating any acid or any metal leaching. So a good solid plan there. This, of course, mine site preparation and operations has to await the issuance of the mine operating permit, which has been put out for public comment. The public comment period's closed, and we expect to receive this permit later in April or May. So stay tuned for announcement on that. With the road construction ahead of schedule, we think the mining equipment will be showing up probably in May. We have contracted Kiewit, which is one of the larger mine contractors in the world. They've been in business a long time, and we're really pleased to have them as the mining contractor for the mining operation. Of course, that'll be managed by Kinross. In addition, we've announced the ore haul contract has gone to a local Alaska contractor, Black Gold Transport. They're located in North Pole, Alaska, just outside of Fairbanks here. They've been in the transport business for a long time in Alaska, so they've got deep roots here in the state. Just talking a bit about so the project's well solidly on its way. I'm an exploration geologist, so I always think about what's next, and you can see on this map that we have a lot of other places to explore for gold. This is what I would call sort of our, we refer to as the Chief Danny area. Chief Danny was the chief when we negotiated the agreement with the Tetlin tribe. So in his honor, we've named this area after him. It's sort of the Minex area, if you will. The 2 black areas there are the North Manh Choh and Main Manh Choh deposits. The multicolored anomalies are golden soils around the known identified reserve pits. So you can see there's a lot of exploration to do along trend, particularly to the northwest. But this represents this whole area here, which is about 50 square kilometers, represents a very small portion of the entire land package that is under lease. We refer to it as the Tetland lease. There's also a small corner there in the northwest corner of state mining claims, around 13,000 acres that are all part of the joint venture. And you can see that Chief Danny area fits within that little circle there that forms just a small part of the overall mining lease. Just to put it in perspective, that area is about the size of Rhode Island. So we have a lot of exploration work to do here. And as I mentioned, this is private land. The Tetland lease is private land owned by the tribe, the Tetland tribe. So very strong supporters of the project, of course. They'll receive a royalty. Lots of local people working on the project. So jobs and training will go along with that. Huge benefit to the region and to the tribe. So we've been working on this for quite a while. We're pleased to have worked with Kinross, and they've advanced the project very nicely, very timely, stayed on time and on budget. So like I say, this time of the year next year, we should be lining ourselves up for gold production, and obviously a very big transition year for the company. So meanwhile, we have our other projects that we are working on. I want to highlight Lucky Shot, and I'll spend the next few minutes talking uniquely about Lucky Shot. We'll just identify that we do have a few other early stage exploration projects in the Tintina Belt, very productive part of the world in terms of gold. But we'll jump down to Lucky Shot here, which of course was a historic mine in production in the 30s, shut down in 1942 by the War Act, when President Roosevelt used the War Act to shut down all gold mining in the United States. They were mining at the time quartz and free gold, very simple mining operation, very simple processing operation. Basically, most of the gold was recovered by gravity. They later put in a flotation circuit to get overall recoveries above 90%. This mine has never been mined since it was shut down in 1942. There's been a few attempts at exploration over the years, most notably by Ensearch, who put a tunnel in, but then abandoned the effort after a few years. But that infrastructure is something that we've used, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. The other period of exploration was on the adjacent Coleman segment of the Lucky Shot vein, where they outlined about 200,000 tons of 18 gram per ton gold for about 120,000 ounces. That Coleman part of the vein system is now part of our property, and we've been exploring the Lucky Shot portion, which I'll go over here. So this is an overall view of the mountain and the vein. You can see the Lucky Shot 500 level. That's where the historic mining took place. The Coleman up towards the top of the mountain, and the War Baby off to the east. Very little work was done there. And then you can see the Ensearch tunnel between Coleman and Lucky Shot. That's the tunnel that Ensearch put in. And then we've now refurbished that and been conducting our underground exploration from. Just that overall view, you can see that's about a mile strike length on the vein. And these are mesothermal veins, so they do tend to go quite a ways down dip because the pressure and temperature in the earth is very stable at these depths, or these mesothermal depths. So the vein systems tend to be very extensive. Same view, but looking now from the air. So this is an aerial photo. You can see the Ensearch tunnel and the Lucky Shot adit level. That spaghetti map underneath is the historic workings projected to surface. That's where the 250,000 ounces came from. Mostly out of that block, what we call the Lucky Shot block, or the Lucky Shot segment, separated by faults from the War Baby to the east and the Coleman to the west. That 120,000 ounces of 18 grams per gold was outlined at the Coleman block, and I'll show you that in just a second here. What we've done is refurbish the underground Ensearch tunnel, and then extended it all the way to the vein now. So we've intersected the Lucky Shot vein at depth. And then we put in a crosscut drift, western drift, and have been drilling from that drift to start infill drilling and defining resources on the Lucky Shot vein itself, on the Lucky Shot segment. In the future, we'll put another drift off to the east, and then one in the hang wall side, and continue to drill the vein down dip. But that's for future works. We are an active mine site. We're fully permitted for mining. Chris Kennedy is my general mine manager. He was the mine manager at Pogo, so he has a tremendous amount of experience. When Pogo was sold to Northern Star, it was a good transition time, and so I nabbed him, and I'm really pleased I was able to grab Chris, because he's just got a lot of underground mining experience, and he brings good safety protocols and good track record of safety to the company. This cross section here shows in blue the historic Ensearch tunnel that was put in the early 80s. We then refurbished that. We extended all the way to the vein shown in green. We drilled some pilot holes in front of us, that's in purple, to know exactly where the vein was. The red horizontal lines are the historic underground Lucky Shot workings, where the 250,000 ounces of gold was taken from. And that ore averaged 1.5 ounces per ton. And basically we're just drilling the down dip portion of that. And then you can see the future plans would be to extend in the hang wall and then drill further down dip. You can see the 250,000 ounces that was outlined. The gold occurs basically as quartz, golden quartz, and sulfides. The host is a granodiorite rock, so where it's not altered it stands really well. We were kind of refer to it as tombstone. We've drilled now a total of 29 holes from underground, and every hole intersected the Lucky Shot vein, oftentimes seeing visible gold in the quartz vein. Assays are now all in, and we're just finalizing our resource estimate, which we hope to have out by the end of the month or very shortly thereafter. This is a 3D sort of rendering, computer-generated rendering of the resource. You can see the pilot holes that we drilled to understand where the vein continued. There's some historic drilling in this as well that Ensearch did. Unfortunately, they did not keep very good records, so we're still researching some of their holes. We're not sure we'll be able to use them in the resource update, but they certainly corroborate the vein distribution. And then on that western drift, that's the horizontal line that goes off to the west there. You can see we completed 2 fan shots of drilling, and that's sort of the level of drilling that we do plan to do over the entire vein system when we get started drilling later this year in the summertime. But that's the density of drilling you need to do to really define resources, and that's really the next step here. Now we know where the vein is. We've got our underground infrastructure in place. It'll be the next step is really just doing a lot of drilling. This is what one of those fans looks like in detail. You basically have between the red line there, which is the Lucky Shot vein, the main Lucky Shot vein, which typically hangs out in the hang wall side of an overall shear zone. The footwall side would be the blue side there. That's the base of the shear, and then there's oftentimes a vein in the base of the shear, the footwall, but most of the time the vein hangs out in the hang wall with occasional horizontal veins. We refer to these as ladder veins that are the crosscut are between the hang wall and the footwall. The density of drilling we're shooting for here is sort of a 15 to 20 meter spacing, and we think that'll be enough to give us an indicated resource when we complete all the drilling. If we step back and look at the drilling that was done at Coleman, excuse me, You can see there was 171 drill holes drilled at Coleman from the surface. And so they defined a pretty decent resource over there, 120,000 ounces of gold, 18 grams per ton. You can see that in the reddish, orangish reddish color there, that's the historic workings from the Lucky Shot. And then we can see where we've drilled in the down dip projection of that Lucky Shot vein. And the highlighted area in the red there is where the most drilling has been done. There's only a few holes that sort of extend the vein further down dip. But for the most part, what's in the red circle is kind of what we're going to be focusing our resource estimate on. So we're starting to get a very good understanding of the Lucky Shot vein, where it is at the Coleman and the Lucky Shot. We haven't focused on the War Baby or the Murphy zones yet. We know they're there. We'll leave those for the future. Our objective here is to outline something in the order of 250 to 400,000 or 500,000 ounces of gold down dip from the Lucky Shot, and including the Coleman portion. So at Lucky Shot, this was a historic resource that was that had a proper 43-101 completed in the past. It's now considered historic because it's out of date. And plus, it's a 43-101 resource. We're under SK 1300 under U.S. rules, slightly different, but just gives you a flavor for what it is that we're looking for here. Overall, looking at something in the neighborhood of 15 grams per ton. So that's our objective. If we can duplicate what was historically mined at the Lucky Shot, historically they took 250,000 ounces at an ounce and a half. We know that was selectively mined. We'd probably have a slightly different approach today. We might more bulk mine it, but then use modern ore sorting technology to separate out the quartz from the unmineralized material. That's all yet to be determined, but we think we've got a good shot at outlining a 250,000 ounces here of good high quality ore. That's certainly the objective. And next step is really, as I said, doing all the infill drilling. This is a perspective diagram looking to the southwest. The N-Search tunnel coming in, and then the western drift is in. We would see drilling developing two other drifts, an eastern drift, and then coming out in front into the hanging wall and developing two drifts off of the main tunnel, and then doing detailed infill drilling to outline our resource, and then develop a mine plan around that. So I'll wrap up there. This is a shot of the Lucky Shot vein, and Chris and I standing at the face. It's a great little project. We think there's potential to develop a mine here that can produce 30 to 50,000 ounces of gold a year. Give us another year of drilling and another year to put a mine plan together. And I think we've got another good win for the company. So I'll stop there and thank everybody, but I'll open it up to questions.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. And just as a reminder to everyone that might want to participate in the Q&A, feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A chat found on the right-hand side of your screen. Rick, we've already got a number of questions that are coming in, though, so I'm going to start with Alan's. How far of a haul is it to Fort Knox, and how is it economical to ship 4 grams per ton ore all the way up there?
So it's 240 miles all the way from the project site all the way to the Fort Knox stockpile area. And the resource grade was 4 grams, but the reserve grade that we're actually shipping is 8 grams per ton. And in rough numbers, it's, and obviously depending on what oil price you want to use, price of diesel is important, obviously, in transporting the ore. But in rough numbers, it's 1.5 grams. I think about it in terms of grade. It's about 1.5 grams of gold per ton in cost to haul the ore up to Fort Knox. So with an 8-gram head grade, you've got a lot of margin there.
Right. Josh wants to know, when are you funded through until, and when is a construction decision going to be at Manh Choh?
Well, the construction decision has essentially been made because we're constructing the road right now. In terms of the mining, we've engaged Kiewit as the mining contractor, and we can't start mining until we receive the state permit, what's called the mine operating enclosure plan. which has been put out for public comment. The comment period closed, I think, about a week or two ago, and we're expecting to receive that permit by the end of April. So that's sort of the timing. That's the main permit we need to start mining. There's a few other permits that we'll need from wastewater disposal and things like that, but they're all issued by the state, and there's a process to go through. And if you're permit in mining, you're never really done permitting. It's an ongoing process. So nothing. We don't really expect anything unusual to be going on here with from the permitting going forward. Just a part of the natural process of mining.
Fair enough. Question about, once Manh Choh begins production in 2024 and utilizes capacity at Fort Knox, how much capacity is going to be remaining at Fort Knox?
Well, that's probably a question better answered by Fort Knox, but or by Kinross. We are batch processing, so once a quarter for roughly a month, we'll be batch processing Manh Choh ore. There's plenty of capacity at the Fort Knox mill. As I mentioned, there's a big gyratory crusher and a SAG mill. Our ore will be going through that, and then there's 2 ball mill trains. One will be dedicated to the Manh Choh ore, while the other will continue to operate the Fort Knox ore, as it has been doing for quite some time. So that has been the general plan for Fort Knox is just using the one line ball mill train. So I think they'll just plan on continuing doing that. I haven't seen anything, any announcement that they're planning anything different from their normal operations of Fort Knox ore.
Right. Mark wants to know, with Contango CapEx share at approximately $55 million, including contingency, and the debt facility slated at $70 million, what are the plans for the remaining 15? Is this because $55 million would be too small a book for ING, MacQ?
No, the main reason is because we are batch processing, we need to have a fair bit of headroom of working capital. And as banks will be banks, and they want to make sure that we've got enough to cover basically 6 months of working capital. So, which is a bit more than usual, but that is because a result of the batch processing, or the decision to batch process. So that is why we have a $70 million facility. It's mainly for working capital.
Right. Carl wants to know if you could just provide some details related to your plans on hedging gold prices at the Manh Choh project.
Was that hedging gold prices? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. The banks will require hedging. We're finalizing, what that will look like. The hedges won't be set until documents are finalized. So, roughly, call it roughly a month from now. I think we'll, be looking at something in the order of 75 to 100,000 ounces of gold to be hedged. And at today, if you look at the forward curve today for delivery in 2024, mid 2024, you're probably looking at $2,100 gold price. So, hedging's always a controversial subject. The banks will require us to hedge. There's no question about that. The good news is, if you hedge now, you'll be looking at something plus $2,000 gold price, maybe $2,100 or $2,200, depending on where the price of gold sits and where the forward curve sits. That actually is exactly what Contango is that delta between the current spot price and the future price. So our name is, we're kind of living up to our name here in taking advantage of that Contango.
Fair enough. John wants to know, does Kinross have environmental management responsibility?
Absolutely. No, they are the manager, and I have to say, Bartley Clevin is the head of the environmental group over at Kinross Fort Knox, and she's done a brilliant job. She's on top of her game. Fort Knox has received all sorts of accolades for being a top-notch operation. They have a partnership with Trout Unlimited, not only sort of monitoring ongoing reclamation and fish habitat enhancement programs at Fort Knox itself, but also elsewhere around the state. So they've just done a brilliant job of managing the environmental issues related to mining. They fully reclaimed one of their previous mine sites at True North. And if you drive on the highway, you take a look at it. It looks just it's absolutely stunning how well a job they've done. So they've done a brilliant job, and Bartley's been a key part of that, and she's certainly leading the charge on the Manh Choh project permitting as well.
Great. Howard's wondering, will you be selling calls as a part of hedging away the upside, and how about buying puts instead?
Yeah, no, so we're, one of the big advantages of working with two banks like ING and Macquarie is they know this space. They know the forward. They know the whole gold sales business, and so it'll be a put call strategy that they'll use. We'll obviously be paying them for that. We're a small company. Would be probably unrealistic for us to hire a bunch of people to figure out how to buy and sell gold. We'll basically pay them a fee, and they'll do it at our behest. And I think we'll be the benefactors of that, because they do understand that space very, very well.
No, absolutely. Another question just from Mark, wondering if you expect the hedging to use costless collars.
Well, I'm going to have to plead ignorance on that one. I'm not a gold trader, so Mark, I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Oh, fair enough. And he's even just saying now he thinks that you covered it anyways, so all good.
Okay.
Great. Well, listen. Yeah. Awesome. That looks like those are all the questions that we received for today. I want to thank you, Rick, for hopping on. And I also want to, of course, thank everyone who's joined us, especially those who've asked questions. Like I mentioned before, if you want to get in contact with the team, you can fill out that survey linked at the top of the chat, leave your information. But otherwise, Rick, I want to pass things back to you for any closing remarks.
Yeah, well, thank you, Cam, and thanks everybody for joining us today. It really is a pretty exciting time getting ING and Macquarie, and we'll look forward to getting those agreements finalized and talking about what the hedge book will look like further as we solidify all that. Also very excited to come out with our initial resource on Lucky Shot here in the next several weeks. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a very exciting transformational year for Contango. That transition from explorer to producer can be a tough one. I think we're in good hands with our partnership with Kinross. They certainly have been very good here in Alaska as an operator, and we're really proud to be working with them. And I look forward to updating everyone at our next meeting. Thanks very much.